Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. Who's Bob Balaban?
I think he was some sort of producer, because I always remember at the end of cartoons and that, it would say like Balaban and someone Productions.
I think that was his father.
Well, maybe that's true. I don't know. I just remember Balaban.
There was a Balaban who was like a funny-looking little bespectacled guy who was had a small role in lots of movies, like a character actor.
Okay.
And Jess, are you going to look him up?
How do you spell it?
B-A-L-A-B-A-N. Balaban. And the reason I'm asking is because, Bob, somebody tweeted me or sent me a tweet of a picture of Bob Balaban's mother-in-law's tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
And it says thus: Ginger Grossman, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and leader, a force of nature. Vote Democrat.
He's just an actor.
He's just an actor, it says. Actor.
Nothing great. He was in Close Encounters of the Third
He was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He always plays little roles in good movies.
Actors.
He's in a lot of good movies.
Oh.
Name me some other movies.
Ginger. Jess, is there a picture of him?
He's a little nerdy-looking guy,
Well,
right? Yeah, he's a nerdy-looking guy. Excuse us. So we just came in the minute we were...
Capote. He was in Capote.
He was in Capote?
Mm.
Moonrise Kingdom recently.
Oh, so
He
these
was
are
in
recent
Moonrise
pictures.
Kingdom. Huh. I can't think of where. Yeah, so he still acts, but I think he's from a big Hollywoodish family.
Maybe
the
that's it.
Balabans.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, vote Democrat. Yeah. I love it when people take a tombstone and do something unexpected with it. Something
Oh, I hate all
that's
that.
so cute.
Beloved mother, beloved husband. Oof.
Well, it's funny if you're reduced to one.
Yeah.
You're reduced to one noun.
Right. Right,
Most cemeteries you're reduced to one
Right.
noun: mother,
Yeah.
father, wife, husband.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly. Or
And
a veteran of foreign wars. That's another big
If you
deal.
were to reduce yourself to one noun, you're given one noun only.
Gadfly.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, that'd be a good one though. to have.
Pundit. No, I think maybe
No.
more gadfly than pundit.
Gadfly. Yeah. Because
I'm sure other people would have different ones for me, but yeah. Well, because what you wanted is not only obviously the name if someone's looking for such person, but sort of what encapsulates them. Like I know you probably heard the story, but when Warhol was asked this. And he didn't like to talk about death in an interview. He said, I just don't want to think about that. And then in the interview, he came back to it a few minutes later, and he said, I've changed my mind. The word I want on my tombstone is figment.
Figment.
Well, because the point was, just like Marilyn Monroe, who was Norma Jean Baker, he was Androla Varchola. That's what he was born. And Andy Warhol was this creation. What his public persona was not, it was part of who he was, obviously, but the inner soul and his loves and life, death, blah, 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 Many people
somebody else.
didn't know until after he died.
But
that
the
he
name
was-
on his tombstone is Andy Warhol.
Well, this is
Or is it
interesting. Well,
Andrew
wait,
or
wait,
what?
this is
All right.
interesting. Because of course when he died, he had made no plans about his funeral and whatever and exequies, so the family just came and swooped him up. And they were going to put, and I don't know how the friends and associates heard about this, but they were going to put Andrew Warhol up. And the people in New York had a shitstorm.
Yeah.
Well, because this was his name by which he had chosen to be known, so it does say Andy Warhol.
Well, as it should.
But then the other thing, I was not there, but they had a traditional Carpatho-Rusyn Byzantine Catholic funeral, and the priests with the high to-dos and the robes. And when they got there, someone who had come, when they got to the grave, the open grave tomb, someone from New York had believed that Warhol should be buried not so much in this modern or quasi-modern religious mode, but rather like the pharaohs. So they brought a huge flagon, crystal flagon of one of the great French perfumes that Warhol liked. And as they lowered the coffin, this person threw this flagon of perfume in, and it broke, and the smell came up, and it was, March, so it was cold and whatever. And the people were horrified from the family, But I guess Pharaoh, Warhol would have liked that.
Well, I mean, the family had to share them with an awful lot of people.
Well,
I mean,
and what was
that's
family? I mean, there was blood family, certainly.
Yes.
And one doesn't
And then-
dismiss that, but then there was family he created.
That's right.
In his factory, and he was with them for far more
Right.
years than he was with the blood folks.
So I've been listening to this book, and people are going to get sick and tired of this, but I was on the way here, I drove down, and the way here I was listening to more of the book, and they were
book is
talking
this?
about burials in England.
Oh.
And over the years, and how they didn't have enough space. They didn't have enough cemeteries, and they would just put people on top of people. So when
I've heard of that, yeah.
when the poet Blake died, he was stuffed into some place on top of about 100 other people, and then other people were put on him. And I mean, you just end up with this huge. And that there were some,
Ziggurat of-
and there were some churches where the graveyard was so full that there was almost still there was a smell of rotting
Really?
flesh.
And this dates to what?
Well, you're in the 1800s.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, interesting stuff.
What is the
But
book? May I ask?
It's
Just
called,
burials in England?
No,
or-
it's called At Home, I think. It's by Bill Bryson, who's a historian type, So he's just talking about where he had gotten into when people started considering landscape part of what their home would be, and how they went from these very cultivated, outdoorsy things to something that looks more natural.
Oh.
And we're just talking about how Olmsted, the guy who ended up designing Central Park, had seen his first public park in London. In like 1851, I believe. And parks, this was the first time London built a park that was public. Parks were only for the upper class.
Well, in New York City, there's Gramercy Park.
I had a key.
Wait, how did you get a key?
Yeah, it was a private park. It's one little thing.
yeah.
I had a key.
Where did you get the key? A liaison dangereuse?
Well, here's the way that worked. So when I went...
This is going to be a good one,
No,
listeners.
it's not. It's
Sit
not.
back and
No, this
sip
one's
your
bo-
brandy.
No, this one's boring. It's a boring story, but it's sort of. Well. So when I ran off to become an actress in New York, my parents did not approve. However, I had $5,000 in my pocket left to me by my grandmother.
Okay.
And that was what was going to allow me to do this. And off I ran and started looking for, a place to live. And I found a place, and there was a phone conversation between me and my father. And I said, I found a place to live. So, here's my address. And he said, now, I'm assuming, of course, that this place has a doorman. And I said, a what? A doorman? he said, "You're living in New York City." And this was when New York was a little squirrely then, 69, 69, 70. And he said, "You've got to have a secure building." I said, "Hey, I can't afford a building with a doorman in it." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well then, you find a building with a doorman and I will pay your rent." He wanted to be able to sleep at night.
Oh, okay.
So, believe it or not, I found a place on Gramercy Park, which is a very fancy
very
place.
lovely square. Yeah.
I had the smallest apartment on Gramercy Park in the biggest building on Gramercy Park, which has two nights on the east.
On the east
the
side,
short
okay.
east
I
side.
know which building, yeah.
And has...
Yeah.
Big, tall thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was a building in which gazillionaires lived. But for some reason on my floor, 11, it had been where it would have been two humongous apartments. It had been chopped up.
Oh, that was probably for back in the maids.
Yeah, okay.
Or whatever of the other floors.
I clearly was living in someone's closet.
You remember what did you
with
pay?
12-foot ceilings.
What did you pay?
I had two windows. I do not remember because my dad was paying it. I didn't pay any.
Because I know the reason
I
I ask is my first apartment.
There was a drunken doorman who was always asleep.
Okay.
Yeah, but
no, I remember my first apartment was 1972 when I went to graduate school, and I was in a brownstone on the west side, which at that point was totally crappy. And it was 74th Street and Amsterdam, and I paid $185 a month.
Isn't that something?
I'd love to know what that apartment. I bet it doesn't look much different, but I bet now it's 2,000.
Well over thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands.
And if it's been done up more.
Well, so Gramercy Park is the only private park left. But that is what it was, and there was it was a teeny little place, but there it was, and it was gated and locked, and only people who lived facing the park
could have a key.
And so I didn't have my own key. I had the building's key.
Right. I'm just curious how that's still. I mean, I'm sure it's well known, but how that can still exist.
I don't know.
But I guess it's the law. It's on the books as. And I think, well, you know what it is? I bet you. Oh, yes. I know exactly who he is. There he is.
Thank you,
Bob
PJ.
Balaban.
He sent us
of
Bob
course,
Balaban's
I know exactly
picture.
who he is. Probably because I bet those buildings, excuse me, and you as a renter pay for its upkeep. It's not a city park, and they prune and water. So therefore, if it's considered private land, then.
Well, so that's how an impoverished acting student had a Gramercy Park address. What a joke!
Now, so maybe that could be in a chapter in your biography. My year on Gramercy Park. It almost sounds like Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, almost.
But then you weren't a prostitute, so.
No, I was not. Somebody who heard my story about Lawrence Welk wrote in and said, yes, they too had connections to Mr. Welk and knew him to be a jerk.
Really overbearing.
He said, Welk was really overbearing, and how some band members could not stand it, and most tolerated it. Well, I guess I'm going to have to.
Well,
look
and the
at
thing
these
also
things.
about it, though, was the fact that he had that overtly Yunzer. Good guy. Oh, how you doing? How you doing? And you knew he was a total creep.
Well, and I mean, yeah.
And he had the tenacity to keep on that show. I don't know how long it was on the air, but I bet at least for 20 years. So he obviously was no fool.
It wasn't just tenacity, it was good ratings. He had good ratings.
Well, no, but I meant the fact that he knew just what a certain slice of Americana wanted, and he kept giving it to them over the years. From when, do you remember Bobby and whatever, the sort of teen dancers who would do all like the jitterbug and whatever?
On the Lawrence Welk show?
Oh, yeah, for years.
I did not watch that show. I would leave the room, even as a child. I couldn't.
Okay.
I mean, I remember in the 1 and the 2 and the champagne bubbles. And
well, that's enough.
And the music was just, I hated
well, it was midstream music, but it was always, even if it was serious
it all
music,
sounded the same.
Right.
It all
There
sounded
was that
exactly
one guy
the
with
same.
a low voice. Ain't going to need this house no longer. Get ready to meet the saints. And then the guy who was the prestidigitator on the accordion and could play, and that guitarist who that email
was talking
these
about.
were serious musicians.
No, they were.
But-
obviously, but
And the Champagne Lady, Norma Shearer was the most famous.
not Norma Shearer.
No, she was
Norma Shearer was an
Norma
actress.
something.
And the Lennon sisters. That's
Oh, the
who I
Lennon
remember.
Sisters, yeah.
The Lennon sisters.
Yeah.
God, I wonder if he was feeling them up.
I'm sure.
Well, probably.
Probably.
Yeah, geez. I wonder if any of them ever wrote about that. Well,
No, I
Well-
mean, seriously, all these things come out. Although maybe they had a contract.
you know,
or
the
something.
oddest thing, I still can't get over it, is that he, with that accent, he was born in
Yeah,
America.
you said that. I remember.
like in
That's-
Nebraska or something. I don't know what he was doing. Where was he from?
Well, but the only thing
Dakotas
is.
or...
Well, no. But the only thing is, sometimes if he. Did I ever say what his ethnicity was? Welk, sort of German or something. But, maybe he grew up with parents who had
Immigrant
very
parents who
thick
still,
accents.
yeah, or still
and-
talk German in the house.
Oh, yeah,
or something.
exactly.
Whatever.
And
Yeah.
And then
Whatever
maybe it was
excuse.
his charm, in a sense, that separated him from Guy Lombardo or whatever. 'Cause that would have been really that same generation.
Ugh. Hey, I don't think I ever said hello. Hello. It's March 28th.
Maundy Thursday.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, in America they say Holy Thursday, but Maundy is the term they usually use in England, and it's the Holy Thursday, and it's when you celebrate the first Mass that Jesus gave before it leads up to tomorrow, Good Friday, with the crucifixion, and then Sunday is Easter. And Maundy, there's a couple of versions of this.
Well, how could Jesus have had a mass?
Well, it was the meal. I mean, because
It was it was Passover.
Well, that's right.
was the
yes,
Seder.
It was well, yes.
Okay,
it was
so
the
they had
Seder,
a.
but yeah,
well, that's what
right.
the Last Supper is.
Yeah,
it's a Seder
it was
table.
a Seder, yeah.
Okay.
But Maundy, they think, either comes from the Latin, where at the Mass Jesus said something to the effect of like, "Whatever you do unto your brothers, you do unto me," and treat one as good, whatever, because it mandate something. Or also in medieval times, there was something called a mandrum or some name like that in French, Latin, that was a purse where you would collect bread and monies for the poor. So Maundy comes from some blend of that.
Well, aren't we full of information?
Oh, I
Hello,
know.
caller.
Yeah, well, a few corrections on Monday, Thursday.
Yes?
In the Synoptic Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, it's the Last Supper that is celebrated on Thursday night.
That's
But
what
in
I was
John-
thinking. Yeah.
It's the foot washing ceremony.
Pardon me?
It's foot washing.
Foot washing.
Yes, they do that as well,
Jesus
right.
washes the feet of the disciples. And church tradition just conflates the two and holds a Mass and a foot washing ceremony together.
Right,
That's Monday, Thursday.
right.
That's Maundy Thursday. Okay, I got it. Is there a name for Saturday before Easter?
Huh.
I don't think I always remember just...
Dark Saturday.
Yeah, right, Dark Saturday, right.
It's weird because that would have been a.
Well, that's the
sort of-
day, supposedly.
He rose.
No, he's in the tomb.
Oh, he rose on
rises
Sunday.
Sunday, yeah. So when you say Dark Saturday, it's sort of appropriate.
Huh. Well, thank you for your.
Yeah, you got to keep your Christian traditions straight because the Christians don't.
Okay.
You know, most of them think that it's all the same thing. But if you only read John, you'd never know about the Last Supper. And if you
Yeah.
only read Matthew, Mark, and Luke and John, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you would
Right.
never know about the foot washing.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Indeedy. Thank you.
Well, it's be interesting to see what this new pope does, because he made the point that I guess when he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he would get like the poorest of the poor and the ill, and they would wash the feet.
Yes, right.
I remember in my day they would get like the blue bloods. and
Would-
their
oh, they
feet-
really- they
their
would
feet
have their
be
feet washed?
anointed with perfume, and then they would wash the feet. I mean, it was symbolic as opposed to really cleaning off.
Yeah. No, they should really wash the feet. They don't.
No,
They
I don't think so. No,
they
no,
don't.
no.
Like maybe they pour a little water or something, but
Oil
don't really much.
clip the toenail. Holy pedicure.
Monday.
Yes, right, exactly.
Oh Lord. Well, the big news, Tom, has been the Supreme Court.
Oh, yes.
Have you been actually?
I've been watching.
Have you been listening? Because you can hear.
No, I haven't.
I haven't heard.
I think it's been. I was saying to Lynn just before we get on. What's been very interesting is no matter which of the justices, at least they listed a number of their questions. I was very, well, surprised, number one, but very pleased and very honored that really the questions were very precise about the law. As the Times had something where the second headline was about, congressmen digging out all the muck on each side of the case. But really the questions I thought were very smart ones about division of law between state and federal.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do.
Well, I know. And they do it, But the timeliness of this, equality, all of these things. I love the business yesterday, of the Tuesday, where they talked about, whether before you got your marriage licenses, they'd have to give you a fertility test.
Yes.
Because if it was just about fecundity, or what about if people not even past the age of childbearing, just decided they didn't want children?
Right.
And so where does that put that if it's just about procreation?
Exactly.
And I thought, but I really was.
Well, what it does is it shows how specious any of the arguments against it really are. And the only argument is that you're used to it being something that only a man and a woman can do.
Right.
But in fact, if you really look at this, there is no reason, since it's an institution that the state has made into one that it oversees.
Right.
And you can't, because of our Constitution, then deny some citizens
the
right
to me, that's 2 points. You said two brilliant things, as you always do. I mean, number one, used to, because, that's basically when you get down to these things. Well, they never did it that way before. Well, so what? Things change. Secondly, the fact that, I would never expect, if Catholics believe and Jews believe and Mennonites believe, whatever, within their religion, if you choose to do that, and if you choose within that religious tradition to attempt to change that, fine and good for you. But the state should not be involved in that. They should be only involved, and by the state I don't mean states, but the government, in the fact of appropriate thing of benefits, the right to own property, the right to adopt children, etc.
There needs to be this demarcation. For instance, I was never married in a religion because my religion would not accept my spouse, and his religion would not accept me. We were, we were marrying out of our religions. So it was, at the time, I couldn't have married in the synagogue, and he couldn't have married in the church. I always remember
in Catholic times, and I don't know how much they tried to dissuade you, because I remember at that point, the couple-to-be would go and have various conversations with the priest.
Yeah.
But I remember the most horrible thing was there used to be in old churches communion rail where you go and you kneel down and you receive the communion wafer. Now they don't have that anymore. But for the wedding, they would open the gates and the bridegroom would kneel right in front of the altar. Well, you can always tell if it was a mixed marriage. They
wouldn't let them. They wouldn't open the gate.
Yeah, and that was just such a cheesy kind of smack on the chops.
For one thing, I don't think I would want. It didn't matter to me. We wanted to get married, and marriage is ultimately decided by the state. So we just had a judge come and marry us.
Right. But the other thing too was interesting when you read the questions. It's so funny. The justices are and the answers are. The questions are short. And I remember a lawyer telling me that, these things, even these big issues like this, it probably was an hour or two. They get in there, ask, make a quick answer, and leave. And whenever the lawyers would say, but judge, get to the point. Argued
Well, I
by
think
the law.
some of these judges, though, I mean, they ask a question and don't let the person answer. They're constantly interrupting.
Well, but that's good.
Well,
Because they're to the point, and these people are going with all this rhetoric. Get to it. I love the questions. What was the one? Oh, today. Yesterday about was it? No, it was the old one. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She said something.
skim milk.
Skim milk. I thought that was great.
yeah, that was good. But the other thing that, if you look at it in transcript, the justices do not seem particularly articulate. There's a lot of hemming and hawing, and in transcript it doesn't sound.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right.
But
Right, sure.
in half finished thoughts.
Right.
And then there's all the interruption as well.
Sure.
Whatever. My guess is they're going to do this as narrowly as they can. The good news is DOMA is going to get
axed, it seems.
as well it should. It was so clearly. I remember at the time it passed, I just went ballistic. And there was nothing funnier than the people that were behind it. If you looked at who pushed that bill, one of the major sponsors was a congressman from, I'm going to say Georgia, I might be wrong, Bob Barr.
Don't remember.
Republican. Mm-hmm. And he, I'm going to forget now, he had been married 4 times. And this is the guy whose authors the Defense of Marriage Act. You can see how valuable it was to him.
Exactly.
All right, never mind. All right, never mind. Oh, I pledge my troth. Forget it. I mean, whatever. I mean, 4 times. And then the president who signs it is Bill Clinton. I mean, come on. These guys, and it's all
Paragons of virtue.
And it's all because, and this is when it was just, everybody could get up and talk about what a threat this was to heterosexual marriage. And I'm looking at the authors of the bill and the president who signed the bill, and that to me looks like more of a threat to marriage than any.
Yeah, right. Well, I thought one of the things that was interesting in the first day's deliberations, as at least they were reported, was the fact of the justices saying, 2 of them, I think, I can't remember which ones, should this be being brought to us at this time? Mm-hmm. Should we wait for the sea change that seems to be coming, number one. And then the other thing that I thought was very interesting, because I had really understood this, was this point that this is the first time that, now what aspect was it? Hold on. That this kind of issue was being brought before the Supreme Court. This business of where the state and where the federal should, and they made the point of it, really, no, this is not just unusual, it's precedent making.
I don't know if I wouldn't think that is this the right time should be part of their deliberation. If in fact they're doing
no to the law. Yeah.
If they're dealing with the law, then sorry, deal with the law. But their concern is that they'll do another Roe v. Wade.
Right.
They'll get so far ahead of, I guess, where a lot of people that there will be this although I don't see how this could be like Roe. Because,
no. Well, I thought one of the ones, I think it's Sotomayor said this, that she said, well, what about in the case of California, between the time when California said the same-sex marriages was okay and then Proposition 8, she said, what about the 40,000 children that have been adopted by gay couples? Are they now to be considered non-existent?
That was Breyer, right?
Oh, Breyer.
What about those children?
Yeah, okay.
What about the children? But, so, I don't know. I mean, I think what they'll end up doing is California will go back to allowing gay marriage. That's my bet. Mm-hmm. But it will not. That ruling will only apply to California. Right. And DOMA will go down so that any states that have gay marriages, those marriages will be recognized by the federal government. Mm-hmm. If you live in a state that does not allow gay marriage, then fine. You're agreeing to be a second-class citizen in that state.
And then that's where I think on that point, with the sea change coming, just
eventually all the states will go.
Yeah. And I think there is a point at which, I mean, then it's not any different from Civil War or anything else. Hey, if you believe in slavery, then live in Mississippi. If you don't, move to Illinois.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just...
Well, you can see how, in regard to the Civil War, how there's still people. I mean, how many years
yes.
they're still essentially stuck in the. They don't.
No, yeah, of course.
They're still fighting it. Okay, we got to get a break in here because we are a little bit behind in that regard, and we will return just in a moment.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Go to BergBargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 40% for the Steelhead Brasserie and Wine Bar. BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
The traditional light bulb, a groundbreaking invention in 1879. It's time we switch to longer-lasting Energy Star light bulbs. They're more efficient than the old bulbs, like a text message is more efficient than a carrier pigeon. And they cut down on our energy costs. Because in our own groundbreaking age, we deserve a light bulb that saves us some cash. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
U.S. Steel. It's interesting.
Oh, yeah, it was, wasn't it? Okay. Welcome. Oh, you know. Okay, so we're in this sequestration, which we've never talked about, but you know about that. Yeah. And here's another.
No, I thought we avoided this sequestration.
No, we did not. Another victim has no.
Well, I thought they've passed, or that's for next year's budget they've passed.
Whatever. Who cares? I avoid. I sort of avert my gaze.
It's like the Jews in the desert, 40 years. Another cliff. Oh, the other side.
Okay, well, here's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, the Hair Care Services Unit of the United States Senate is, getting ready to be axed. Care Services Unit.
But if you can't get a tour of the White House, I can't believe that there's been such a hue and cry about that. That in the cuts they've cut, visitors.
Well, that's because a lot of little kiddies go.
I know, but really.
All right.
I mean, if you're going to bitch about something, I think that could go and never come back.
Don't you want to know about the Hair Care Services Unit?
Yeah, well, go on.
Well, what do you think it is?
The people who cut all the congressmen and whatever's hair for
that is correct. It's a barbershop.
$150.
Yeah, it's a barbershop.
Yeah.
In the Senate office building. It's been there for 100 million years. And of course, they have a shoe shine attendant.
Of course.
And they have...
I'm sure is African American.
Yeah, I'm sure too. And then you can clip, you can get your manicures there.
And there's probably someone who in the latrine turns the water on.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And they don't pay anywhere near what you would pay for it's subsidized. Taxpayers subsidize hair care.
Oh, and I bet it's subsidized. I would bet you it's like $75 or something.
No.
I mean that they charge the government, not that these guys pay, but...
Well, there was public pressure on it in 1979 because the haircuts used to be free to the senators. They were not expected to pay anything. So there was a hue and cry in 79 when they did agree that, okay, so the senators will no longer get free haircuts. They will now have to pay $3.50.
Well, now, what about the ladies?
No, they do the ladies now, too, so they've had to hire women.
So when Barbara Mikulski needs to get her mustache...
Well, you stop. That is so not nice.
Well, she is a piece of... One of my countrymen, Polish countrymen, but she's a piece of work.
She's about, what, 4'2"?
4'2", and... tough as boots, I'm told.
Right. Well, sure, you can tell she is. So anyway, they have a basic haircut now for the senator is $20. And an eyebrow trim, which we should tell Senator Casey we should send in for one of those, is just $15. Somebody send Senator Casey $15 and tell him before the hair services unit shuts down, he should go get...
But, I really would like to know, if they're paying $20, the government's being charged like $50 per clip.
But here's what's interesting in this piece. Nobody seems to know it. But it says right here, this shop is open to the public.
Ooh.
So next time you're in D.C., you just go down to the...
But you'd probably have to get past various security.
No, well, whatever, but you can just say, hey, I'm going to get my hair cut.
Off the stairs.
But what happens is if you're sitting, if they just shampooed you, let's say, and some senator walks in, they're going to
throw you out,
shove you aside.
Right.
Senator can always bump a mere...
Does Senator bump a congressman? I wonder. That would be interesting. Or if it's by ranking, if you're like the chairman of a Arms and Ways and Means Committee or something. Well, you know what's interesting? There was something recently. I thought this was fantastic, fascinating, when various members of either congressmen or other senators or their staffs or even members of the president's staff go with him on Air Force One, they have to pay for their own meals. That's not covered by the government. And it's a fairly hefty fee. So the president says, I need my speechwriter, I need my... But then they are billed every month for their, chicken on cream toast or whatever. I mean, it's such craziness. I mean, on one level... Well, you know what it is? I think that way they can say, the White House isn't spending lots of money on all of this, entourage.
Well, yeah, so that people like me don't say to just hear how many... I don't.
Well, I'm sure the lunches are all subsidized, all this stuff.
Oh, man. Well,
but then they say, well, that means, though, that then they can just go and have their, chip beef on toast, and they don't run out to Le Cordon Bleu, and it takes them longer. And
it'd be interesting to know if, like, a Senator Rand Paul makes use of the Senate hair care unit, because he is a libertarian.
Right.
He doesn't think government should be doing pretty much anything.
Right.
But even people who think government should be doing things do not think government should be cutting hair
for $3.
But I wonder if he makes use of it because it's there. He has
the lady doth protest too much.
He has a thick head of curly hair.
That's right.
And I'm sure it does need some
but I'm sure he probably
management.
But maybe he goes to Vidal Sassoon or something like that.
I doubt that.
You never know. What was there the other day? I saw something on television. It was one of these silly reality things about fashion or something. But this guy in Los Angeles went and spent $1,700 for a haircut. And he only had a little bit more hair than I did.
Oh, God.
I mean, if you had tresses, but so $1,700.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I'll tell you, since I stopped
You could chew the hair off.
Since I stopped coloring my hair, if I take the money I have saved from not coloring my hair, I could throw myself a big party.
Wow.
I'm serious. It's amazing.
Oh, so yeah,
how much women,
and women spend,
what women spend to get to have a job. Let's say, I remember when I was in television constantly. I tried to write off my.
Well, what you should.
I had to buy so many clothes, and they were the kind of clothes
you didn't necessarily
I didn't wear. I wore sweatshirts and jeans. I had to have all those anchor clothes and and reporter clothes and a certain kind of look and a this and a that, and I had to have enough for 3 weeks without repeating or something.
Right.
Plus, I had to have my hair done all the time. I had to makeup, all this kind of crap.
And you couldn't deduct that?
You couldn't deduct any of it.
Why?
Because the clothes I had to wear were considered suitable for streetwear.
Oh, I see.
And consequently...
And so anytime you would just put your Chanel suit on to go to synagogue or something...
That's right. Then you're just showing. You don't... Right. So, But...
As opposed to a uniform, which would be just...
But the fact... Yes. So if it were a uniform, I could have gotten away with it. But it wasn't a uniform.
Oh,
it was so much more expensive than a uniform.
Well, really,
and yet you can't deduct it.
I think you'd look good in epaulets.
Yeah, I think I would too, actually.
Shoulder pads and epaulets.
Oh, but I was so mad.
Call me Sister Lynn.
But women spend so much more money than guys do. Guys can get by with one pair of shoes. 2 shoes.
Right.
Some sneakers.
But so can women, really. Look, Princess, what's her name? What's Kate Middleton, Duchess, I guess she is, and Mrs. Obama have worn. You never would have heard someone say about Jackie Kennedy.
Oh, that she wore the same
that
thing?
same dress twice.
Listen, but both of them have just spend incredible amounts.
No,
of money on
true,
their
but
I think. Do you know it costs more to get women if you take a man's shirt and a woman's blouse into the same dry cleaner?
Oh, really?
The woman will pay more.
But even if it's, I'd say, a shirt like where it's no fancy.
I believe
buttons and
not.
frills.
I believe it's the same thing.
That's awful. That is awful.
And I've often wondered, how does that stand up? How is that?
A Seinfeld episode.
Is there a Seinfeld episode?
It sounds
There
like a
should be.
Seinfeld episode.
Yeah.
Well, and it's because the industry says they have certain tools and machines, and they have the machines that are meant to launder men's shirts.
But nowadays, I mean,
and-
with women, like think of particularly Ellen, what's her name?
DeGeneres.
Yeah, I mean, she wears. I mean, half the
What look
shirts
like
are men's shirts.
But funny
It
things
should
like
be about I could see like that a woman's blouse if there was like ruffles or something, and that takes more ironing or whatever. But if it's just the same thing, they put on those machines. That
I agree. I know.
$7.
But that's something about size and something about it's bull.
Yeah, no, it's.
But women always end up paying more. It's just like, who was I driving with the other day when we were talking about, Vanessa German. I was saying, it's so odd, is black people end up paying more for food in Pittsburgh than white
often in
folks
those little
do.
shops that are in.
Because there's no regular
Yeah, no, that's true.
supermarket. So you pay top dollar for less quality.
Yeah.
Or you have to pay a jitney service because the
Taxis won't go there.
taxis won't come to your house. You have to pay a jitney service to take you to.
But jitneys are on that level.
No,
jitney
I know, but to
services
the
are
giant,
cheaper
but
than a cab. Oh, but I can see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, now, for example, isn't there some? I thought they had finally set up that some Aldi or one of those.
Yeah.
Was going to build a supermarket on the hill. I thought.
Well, that keeps happening and then going away and happening and going away. I think it's back. Who knows? And there was just one of those kinds of stores that ended up in Wilkinsburg, which is of some help to them, although there's Giant Eagles close enough and on the bus lines there. But even things like, it's just, I don't know. It just shows how absolutely, in this country, if you're sort of on the lower end, they've pulled the rungs off the ladder.
On the upper level,
you can't even get up there. Everything costs you more.
And on the upper level, you get
everything free.
haircuts.
And you get haircuts for nothing. And it's true.
Yeah.
If you're rich, people want to do things for you, or it's expected that they will.
Right, it's expected. Right.
And when you're poor, man, you pay out the nose.
Well, that's
for
why Jesus washed those feet. So go out and wash some feet today, people. And if you're a foot fetishist, it's a great day for you. And for Dr. Scholes. Yeah.
All right, we've got some.
Oh, did you see that?
Rand Paul cuts his own hair. Okay. So does my brother, but
how do you do it? I've never understood. I have no hair.
Oh, you go.
Yeah, but how? Oh, but come on.
No,
then
you
you're
don't
gonna see the
care.
clumps.
I don't.
And he always looks okay to me.
I know lots of people who do.
Well, oh.
I would never be one. Mary lets us know that exotic dancers, strippers, can deduct the cost of their breast implants.
No, but that's not. No, but that would be the same thing as your Chanel suits. I'm sure when they go out. With
What does she take her breasts off when she goes out onto the street?
Well, no, and the point. No, the point here would be, if I understand it, bigger breasts are what exotic dancers, what men want them to have. Well, but I would presume that the same men, if they were boyfriends, would enjoy those same D-cup breasts. So then it's serving God and mammon.
The IRS code stipulates that if you want to deduct something, it has to be ordinary and necessary to your business. Generally, the law generally categorizes what you spend to improve your appearance, general health, or sense of well-being as non-deductible.
But the only thing I would say to that, though, is looking on the street, like you just look like a dog just attacked your face, and looking beautiful as, a female journalist would be expected to be in the misogynistic world that is. Well, that's very different.
Okay, well, let us take the case of one Chesty Love.
Okay. Chesty Love, great. All right.
Also known as Cynthia Hess.
Cynthia Hess.
She's from Indiana, and she actually won. She got a United States tax court to uphold a deduction for her surgical implants.
She was formerly known as Tonda Murray.
We could go on. We could go into actually the transcript of this trial reads a lot more entertainingly than does the cases that we were talking about before the Supreme Court. Cynthia.
This is the specific to your.
Okay. Thing. To buttress her decision, the judge was a woman. Cynthia testified, though, that she and her husband routinely endure off-color, vituperative comments from people they encounter. Consequently, she has decided to have the implants permanently removed when her career ends.
Oh, all right.
So she's saying, I'm just doing this for my career. As soon as it's over, we're ripping these babies out. To buttress her decision, the judge then compared the implants to work clothes and uniforms, which have to satisfy a two-step test. One, they are required as a condition of employment.
Well, which you would have.
That's a bar I would have crossed. And two, unsuitable for everyday use. And that's where I screwed up.
But the point is, I would sort of say, if you could come in and say, here are photographs of Lynn Cullen at a party with her son, in the garden, going to synagogue, and you're still wearing jeans and a sweatshirt or whatever, then I would say maybe for other people Chanel suits are daily dress.
That's right, but for me, I don't walk around in Chanel suits. Anyway, so the judge agreed that her huge breasts are essentially a costume needed to retain her employment as an exotic dancer. And also, Cynthia testified, that'd be Chesty person,
Tonda Murray,
that she would remove, if she could, she would take those babies off every time she got home. But, of course, she couldn't. So the verdict is that implants that are really huge are useful only in her business and therefore deductible. Each of her breasts weighs about 10 pounds. So,
but she must look, I'm a gay person, but she must look grotesque.
Well, yeah, that's what they say. They had, they had vituperative comments from people when they, when she was out in the world.
Oh, people are nuts.
Okay, let me see if I can. You guys, you send us more than we. This is good stuff. Good stuff. A few more things here. Rand Paul cuts his own here. We got that one. And all right, PJ, cut it. PJ keeps sending us funny.
No, but that makes my point, though. His haircut does not look uniform. It looks sort of ungapachki. Who's that? Oh, there's Lynn.
Oh, get rid of that awful picture.
Misspelling?
Joe sent me a picture of me looking very scary. That's the problem when you made your living on television. That there's so much out there that can come back and
a bad hair
humiliate you. I thought my hair looked hot.
Well, the Michael Jackson
the bangs.
strands.
You don't like the bangs?
Well,
you didn't like Michelle's either.
Hers were full.
Yeah.
Yours were a little
wispy.
I don't think that was wispy. Wispy is sort of Miss Clairol. That didn't look wispy. I'm sorry.
What, you think, well, I suppose you think because you're gay, you know more about my hair than I do, huh?
Hair.
Hair. What is it?
Didn't you know that gay people have extraordinarily good taste?
Yes.
How many hairdressers, how many couturiers?
I know. That's so... Did we ever talk about that?
No.
Why so many of those kind of creative, adorning, ornamentally, you know what I mean?
Well, I think two things. One, some people have said in a negative context, I don't believe this except for maybe some people, that gay people like to push women around because they're not love objects, but they like to push them around and sometimes make them wear, totally outrageous outfits.
Well, I've often wondered why so many people who design clothes for women are gay men.
Well, but I think part
and then
of
we
it
end up with models that look like adolescent men.
Right, exactly.
With no breasts, no.
Oh, right. And the other thing I've always found is, and this never changes whether they're booksome or not, that when they're walking down the catwalk, they never smile. They always have to look like mother dead, father dead, just came out of the camps,
That's right. Ridiculous.
I think that it has to do with, because men aren't necessarily supposed to be interested in aesthetics, whether it's landscaping or beauty or cooking or whatever, that it opens up a whole cadre of jobs on that and things for men to do. And put the same kind of sometimes egotism, ambition behind it. So you get these chefs who are, as if they were Picasso.
Well, that's what always annoyed me, too. As soon as a man takes a job, it becomes high status.
Well, right, that's
so
true.
Chef, women have done most of the cooking forever,
right, that's true.
ever. But you don't see the chefs.
But
you're right. Does it all of a
sudden.
But
in terms of a chef as opposed to a cook, let's put
well, but that's what I'm saying.
No, I know.
So women are cooks and men get to be chefs. And even waiters and waitresses, I've pointed this out over the years. When you go to a diner, you don't see any guys waiting on tables. You see women.
Well, it's a little different now, but most of the time you're right.
Women.
Most of the time you're right.
You go to some fancy schmancy.
And it's all men.
And it's all men. Stop and think of the tips that get left at the diner.
Right.
So what are those women who are actually working harder because they got more tables and it's supposed to be fast service and all this kind of stuff. Then you go to some place where,
a violin is playing.
Yeah. And it's a man doing the waiting.
I chastise the waiter.
Coming. It drives me nuts.
I chastised a young waiter the other night. I went to a new restaurant on Market Square. That was quite nice. This restaurant, Il Pizzaiola, that used to be in Mount Lebanon. Well, it's still there. This is a new branch, but very good. One of the better Italian restaurants in Pittsburgh, I think. But anyway, this kid was nice, but a little wet behind the ears. So finally we had this, that, and the other meal. And then he came and he said, "Are you still working on that?" And I said, "Son, please, this is a very high-quality restaurant. Do not use that term. It's like going to the pigs, and when you're finished with the trough, you could say, 'May I remove your plate?'
Yes.
But are you still working on that?" And I've seen what I think is hilarious. This is more so in New York, just because whatever. But people who can barely speak English, Asian or Hispanic, people are, "You're still working on that?" And it's the most horrible expression. I can't
You hate that expression.
Well, because are you working on that? Eating is not working on that. Especially if it's a fancy meal. If I'm going to Primanti's, maybe, for all you lovers of Primanti's. But, where you're jamming, or Primanti's. But that's how, Primanti's, that's how you'd say it in Wisconsin with that.
But I even hear they say
That's how you say it here.
Primanti's.
Oh, you do?
You don't say Primanti's.
Ooh,
Yeah.
well, I've lived in Italy, so.
Primanti's. No, it's Primanti's.
Well, anyway, but we're still working on it.
Okay,
I hate that.
Anybody out there who knows any waiters or waitresses that might end up having to serve this guy, please tell them, warn them, do not ever approach Tom Sokolowski and say, "Hey, you still working on that?" We got to take a break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen live after this.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for an in-depth look at city politics, plus Aziz Ansari, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and the Shadow Lounge. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
I was going to say watermelons.
Well, no, so PJ's done the math. For some perspective, he says a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. So imagine lugging around 2-gallon milk jugs plus 2 more pounds on your chest.
Backache.
No, really. No,
yeah.
Seriously. And you know how this is so odd that PJ gave us that information that a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds, because I was in receipt of that exact same fact just a few days ago.
Wow.
And here's the context.
Tell me.
Again, that book in which, okay, let's say the master wants to take a bath. Well, there is no, if you're a servant in 1820, and the master wants to take a bath, and the tub is up in, but the only water is down in the
Downstairs, yeah.
And the bath requires 48 gallons to be full.
There was this little wisp of a girl carrying these jugs up and down those
Just imagine,
stairs.
up and down. And first of all, has to heat the water,
right.
get it up. Also, when the master is done with his bath, all of that water has to be...
There was no drainage.
There's no drain. Has to be carried down in the same way. And this would be...
Soapy, hairy, disgusting water.
I don't know.
We never saw that on upstairs, downstairs, or downtown Abbey.
No. And in that regard, those are not...
fun jobs.
Well, I'm just saying that it's not a proper depiction of what being in service really was, and the amount of work and the absolute. There were houses where the people in them not only didn't know all these people that were keeping their house running, but did not want to have to, when one might leave or die, and the footman had to be replaced. They didn't want to have to learn a new name. Everyone who was the footman
You'll be Maisie.
was Jack. Yeah.
No, I remember that.
You would lose your name.
I have to say, on that level, it's been years, mind you, but upstairs, downstairs was pretty good about that. For all the, Lady Marjorie and all that crap.
But Downton Abbey isn't.
No, Downton Abbey isn't.
I mean, they're
upstairs down, because I remember there was this one
happen.
woman, and she came in. What was her name? She said, my name is Rosalie. And Lady Marjorie said, I remember this, how funny. Dear, you will be Sarah. And it was just, it would be easier. And then I remember she said this, that Rosalie is not a servant's name. But I remember these young girls having to get up at 4 a.m. to light the stoves and all that sort of stuff. And then, if they got knocked up or whatever,
you're thrown out.
You were thrown out. And there was no sense whatsoever of years spent.
Or of owing them anything. It was just the worst. It is beyond comprehension.
Well,
and if you worked for a...
Dickensian. I mean, really, and all the aspects of the badness, the nastiness for the poor in those novels.
And how the rich were so totally dependent.
Dependent, right? Exactly.
There was a funny story about some duke who found himself in a situation where his manservant was not with him in the morning, and who hysterically emerged from the bathroom, saying that his toothbrush would not foam. And what he didn't know and had never noticed is that his manservant had always applied toothpaste and then handed him the brush. And he picked up the brush He didn't know there was
Look,
something.
he
He didn't
just-
even
he
know
just
there was something.
scrub-a-dub-dub.
He just somehow in his head thought the toothbrush creates this foam. Now that kind of enforced, sort of enforced ignorance.
Yeah. Really.
And enforced neediness. Where you can't dress yourself. You can't
Right.
you can't. I mean, wow.
Well, it's interesting because it reminds me. I remember when I was studying the 18th century, 17th century, and when you read, it was particularly bad for Louis the XIV, Sun King. And one thing that he learned was that people talked about the grandeur of court and the dress and the decorum and the manners and whatever and where you stood. And they made the point that one of the reasons he enforced this was that he knew that if all of the gentry who could be the ones who would try to usurp him or whatever were too busy deciding, it's Tuesday, so we have to dress in pink with a white feather in our hats, etc., they would have no time to think about,
That's right. Affairs of state.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And the same thing I think was true with Victoriana, the rules and regulations of
That's right.
what you wore and how long the meals were and all this and how you went to drop the card off.
You dropped the card, and there was visiting hours, and
Yes.
these people with nothing to do, having been dressed and outfitted by their servants, and then they would leave cards, and you left a card if the person you were calling on wasn't there. That person had to. It would be rude as hell if they the next day did not go schlep over to whoever's cards were left. Right. So all these idiots did all day. They had nothing to do.
Nothing to do.
Was wander from house to house, leaving cards or showing up, and
having all these
rules.
multiple meals. I mean, breakfast, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea,
and you also have to believe that
dinner.
Think of the clothes of those periods. So fussy, so many thises and that's. There's no way
dry cleaning.
And no dry cleaning. There is no way that anyone could maintain that without a bunch of servants.
Exactly.
To dress you, to clean, and don't even get me into what laundresses had to do. I mean, you can't even imagine. Drudgery, we don't know from nothing.
Well, one thing, I knew someone who, this was maybe 15 years ago, but that's how recent, whose servant would iron the newspaper before he was brought.
Oh, you know what? I just heard that people, they always had their newspapers ironed.
Yeah. So it'd be crisp. And I suppose maybe also burn off the germs of any person with scabies who delivered.
Unbelievable. I gotta go, guys. I gotta go. We're out of time.
Go wash some feet, people.
Yeah, I will not be here tomorrow. Good Friday has apparently knocked us off the air.
Oh.
There's no one who can run the board for me. I would be here otherwise. But so I'll see you on Monday, and we'll have a 5-day week next week. You're coming, right? Next week?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Full 5-day week next week. Enjoy your Easter weekend.
And the remainder of Passover.
Yes, indeed.
Celebrate
happy
everyone.
holidays to all. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.